Let's jump over to the next story because the next one is whether or not we're going to see massive riots across the country. And
Right.
yes or no answer. Will we see substantially worse riots this year?
Oh man.
Okay,
substantially worse? No, I won't say substantially worse because they were real bad last year.
You don't think it'll be worse this time?
No, I think the police will be better prepared. Seems like they've been better prepared in Brooklyn Center.
Do you think there will be riots?
Yes.
All right. We got this story from Fox News, which I found. I'm sorry. I laughed when I saw it. Greg Jarrett says, Derek Chauvin prosecutors meet the burden of proof in trial.
What?
And he opens by saying defending the indefensible can be futile and fatuous endeavor. And then he talks a lot about stuff, blah, blah, blah. At the end, he says, it is never easy to reach a decision unanimously when presented with conflicting testimony as noted herein. Jurors tend to resort to common sense and wisdom grounded in their own life experiences. In this case, the great weight of the evidence favors the prosecution. It has sustained the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that what Derek Chauvin did was not only wrong, but criminal. I can't believe that's true, based on everything I've seen so far. And I'm curious, Mr. Lawyer, if you agree with Greg Jarrett that the prosecution has met the burden of proof, proving that Derek Chauvin was not only wrong, but criminal.
I don't think they've proved causation beyond a reasonable doubt. I thought Dr. Fowler's testimony was very reasonable. There's just a lot of potential alternate causality here. I mean, the guy had a 90% blocked heart artery. He had 11 nanograms per milliliter of fentanyl in his system, along with methamphetamine.
I think it was 5.6 of norfentanyl, meaning metabolites.
Yeah, metabolized fentanyl. I mean, and you had the testimony about him sleeping in the car and had to be roused. He decided to fight with the officers and have this huge adrenaline spike. That could have been a heart attack. And
so here's my issue, right? So let's go through the charges. This guy's saying they met the burden of proof. I don't see that. We've got murder 2, murder 3. We've got manslaughter in the 2nd degree and assault in the 3rd degree, which is the murder 2 they're going for is the felony murder rule, correct? Mm-hmm. So that means they're arguing that Chauvin did not want to kill George Floyd.
Yeah, none of the charges require intent to kill. That's the key thing to understand, right? They're going for unintentional murder 2, depraved heart murder 3, which is also unintentional, and then involuntary manslaughter. So that's all. None of that requires intent to kill. So that's why they didn't spend any time proving it.
There was a point in the trial that I've brought up several times where the defense cross-examined the state's use of force expert from LA. And based on the continuum chart, it's the continuum where it shows like passive resistance, which is, going limp or, not standing up. Active resistance, which is fighting, and then active aggression, where you're like shooting at somebody. In the category, this guy said, in this continuum, the defense expert witness, the prosecution's expert witness said George Floyd was actively resisting. Mm-hmm. Right next to it said like electro whatever, force compliance or whatever, which is a taser. And Nelson, the defense attorney, said, so Chauvin could have used a taser immediately upon encountering George Floyd actively resisting the other officers. And the prosecution's witness said yes. And he goes, and then Chauvin chose a lesser force option of restraint instead. And the expert witness for the prosecution said yes. That to me right away threw everything out the window. It seems like based on that argument alone, Chauvin was trying not to hurt the man.
Right.
Or to minimize.
Right. You could see, that could in and of itself be reasonable doubt. I think the defense is going to have problems because the defense use of force expert was a clown.
Yeah.
A complete clown. The attempt to say that it wasn't a use of force to hold the guy on the ground because, it's a constraint position. So there's not even an inquiry as to whether or not the force was excessive. I thought that was it was indefensible. It was revealed on cross to be indefensible. He basically retracted his entire opinion. Within 5 minutes of cross-examination. So that was really bad. And I think it was a huge missed opportunity for the defense because I think you're right. There were the defense use of force experts, plural, had conflicting testimony. You had the LAPD guy saying that holding somebody in the prone position under the circumstances was justified use of force. And then you had the academic saying it wasn't.
Right.
And all you need is a guy to get up there and say,
which is it?
Which is it? But just you have your own defense expert who says, look, under the totality of these circumstances, this was a justified use of force, rather than trying to say it wasn't a use of force at all. You just say, given the resistance and given the fact that they thought he was going through excited delirium, it was reasonable for them to hold him on the ground and try and just restrain him and prevent him from moving. And that's what they were doing.
The crazy thing to me is that they're trying to claim that Chauvin murdered Floyd, that he was the cause of death, but they can't even tell us definitively what the cause of death was.
Right. I mean, they say that it's 100% low, positional asphyxia.
Well, they changed their position.
Who?
Initially, it was that it was pressure to the neck, cutting off oxygen to the brain. And then, apparently, because of one of their own experts testifying about how the knee had moved, they switched it up to saying it was, pressure resulting in low respiratory function.
Yeah, I mean, the weakest part of... So Tobin says it was both the knee on the back and the holding him in the prone position, and then also the knee on the side of the neck at times, which to me, honestly, doesn't make that much sense because, I mean, I don't know if you've, done this, but, this isn't near your airway, right? Like, the idea that a knee on the back of the neck would close your airway just doesn't make sense.
Is that what he said, close your airway?
Right, like, it would lead to your airway closing.
He's a breathing expert, I guess, right?
Right, he was a breathing expert. But and the defense expert said there's no literature on this. Like, and to me, that was a moment of yeah, I mean, you're saying he choked via that. And then the positional asphyxia thing, the Fowler was able to suggest pretty strongly that the guy who came up with the idea and wrote about it said it really only applies to people who are obese because you're pressing their gut up into their lungs. Right. It doesn't apply to people like Floyd, who was quite 6'6", 230, but very lean.
What is the argument, the closing argument from the prosecution going to be? Could you even predict it?
I mean, the closing argument is going to be unjustified use of force means it's assault, so that's murder 2. The knee on the neck is so egregious and appalling that means it's murder 3 too. And then he died of positional asphyxia. Dr. Tobin said he did. Listen to him. And the other guy's not credible. He was paid. Something like that.
I mean, they had one of their defense experts. I think a couple of their experts were paid as well, but sure.
Yeah,
sure.
And I don't think being paid in the circumstances is, I mean, I don't think it makes you more or less credible. I mean, the fact that you're volunteering and wanting to try and put a guy in jail is weird.
I agree. Yeah. Having this guy be like, I want to fly out here and then come and speak so that I can, make my...
I mean, the prosecution team, they had Neil Katyal. Do you know? I don't know if you guys know Neil Katyal. He was my former criminal law professor. He was former acting solicitor general of the United States.
Wow. He was serving on the prosecution.
He was they brought him in for motions practice, right? To argue some of the legal points. He would zoom in and argue them. And so you've got Eric Nelson, the random criminal defense attorney, arguing against Neil Katyal, who argues more Supreme Court cases every year than any other private attorney.
Why?
And the prosecution team is also mostly private attorneys.
What?
So Blackwell. The bald black guy, and then Schleicher, who handled a lot of the other cross-examination. Both of them are private litigators that Keith Ellison brought in to handle the case. There's only one state prosecutor, the woman with brown hair. She was the only prosecutor who's actually a prosecutor in her day job.
They overcharged Chauvin.
Yeah,
they should have gone with what, manslaughter?
I think man 2 is the correct charge here.
But you don't even think he'll get that?
I don't think he'll get that because I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a juror who says to themselves, I don't know how he died.
Yep.
That's reasonable doubt.
But even if the juror is I think he most likely died because of the knee on the neck, that's still doubt, right?
Right.
He could still, he still gets off in that case.
And that's going to come up, that the closing's going to focus on that. I guarantee you the defense attorney's a smart guy. I guarantee you that defense attorney knows he's in a lot, I guess, deeper water on use of force than he is on causation. Yeah. And he's going to drill down and be like, unless you are 100% certain that Chauvin died of positional asphyxia, not guilty.
Yeah.
Right?
Floyd do you think he'll bring up,
asphyxia.
I think, didn't Cahill mention in September it looked like Floyd swallowed pills? There was a tweet I pulled up from a local journalist.
Yeah, I mean, and there were pills in the back of the squad car with his saliva on them.
The speedball, a half-chewed speedball found in the squad car.
Yeah.
So I pulled this up. There was a tweet from back in September when they were setting up the case, where the judge said that it looked like in the photos Floyd had swallowed pills. Mm-hmm. Do you think the defense is going to bring up to the jury George Floyd was seen on camera ingesting what appeared to be drugs? He was with a man that was testified by his own girlfriend to be their drug dealer. They found drugs in the vehicle, and he had the drugs in his system, which, as you've heard already, fentanyl depresses your respiratory system, and methamphetamine causes heart arrhythmia. We can't be sure how George Floyd died.
Yeah. I mean, there's a very powerful closing, and it's a lot harder to rule it out. I mean, they basically have to rely on these pieces of Dr. Tobin's testimony that said, well, if you had a heart attack, you would have seen this and this and this.
Who gets the last word, though? Prosecution does, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the prosecution already had its... I think, the prosecution gets the last word in opening or in
the closing
arguments.
Yeah. That's powerful.
It is, but it's still beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think at the end of the day, the defense has it. I've seen, I think about the Robert Durst case where the guy literally, what's the word for, not decapitated, but dismembered his neighbor. The dismembered body was, pieces of the dismembered body were found in the lake or in the river. The axe used to do the dismembering was found in Durst's car.
Wow.
What? When was this?
This is a great HBO show called The Jinx, which you have to watch
Oh,
if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, The Jinx.
The Jinx, it's incredible. And he claimed self-defense. Said that the guy was his friend, and when do you dismember someone in self-defense?
So how did he get acquitted? That's
he managed to give persuade reasonable doubt that the thing that led to his, he's like, I didn't murder him, I did dismember him.
I think wasn't it the New York Post that the headline was Durst, who cut up body, claims self-defense.
That was the New York Times that said that.
Right?
Wow.
Holy cow.
That was a headline.
Well, hold on. There's something we got to consider, though. If tonight we see rioting, and I think one of these jurors lives in Brooklyn Center, and the rest of the jurors still have to commute through riots to get to court, do you think they're going to show up on Monday sweating bullets, knowing that if they say not guilty, that it's going to be a brick through their window and their house on fire?
Maybe. I mean, I could see somebody hanging the jury because of that. They're just like not willing to go with a not guilty verdict. So I think hung jury is a real possibility here.
And that means they redo the trial again later, right?
Right. It would just be a mistrial.
Wow.
What's the difference between murder 3 and manslaughter?
Murder 3 is what's called depraved heart murder. So like that's supposed to be really, really, involuntary manslaughter is killing someone without intent, right? Generally, that's the usual crime. Like for example, the Deonte Wright case where the woman mistook her gun for a taser and shot the guy. That's an involuntary manslaughter charge.
So the one cop says I don't think she's actually made her statement yet.
Right. Fair enough. But like that's what they charged. That's the first thing they charged. But depraved heart murder is things that are like really beyond the pale that indicate a depraved heart. So
juggling chainsaws,
and
then you throw someone at somebody or something.
I think I read that the classic case in black letter law is two people are playing a modified Russian roulette where they're shooting. There's one bullet and a revolver, and they're shooting each other, and finally one of them died, and they're like, okay, that's not involuntary manslaughter, even if you didn't have intent to kill.
Right,
that's
I see.
So beyond the pale.
So weird.
But it's not supposed to be that common. Third degree murder is not supposed to be that common.
So what they're claiming that he was like in his mind he was like, I don't want to kill him, but man, I hope he dies. Like that kind of it?
Something or like I don't care that I'm putting my knee on his neck and suffocating him, even if I'm not trying to kill him. I don't care that I'm inflicting this much pain.
Weird distinction. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I mean it's just it's there so that sometimes things that are really beyond the pale can get more years.
The prosecution's own witness, I think more than one, testified that the position Chauvin was in was a ground control technique that they actually train. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy said, yes, that's a ground control technique. So it's like, what? I'm sorry, man. Look, nobody wants, well, I should say most people don't want anyone dying, right? There's a faction of murderers, I suppose they exist, and depraved individuals. That's why we have murder charges. But, I mean, nobody wanted to see anybody die in the Deonte Wright case, in the Adam Toledo case, and George Floyd. But the cop shows up. Chauvin was told it was a priority 1, right? That means sirens, rush in, guys actively resisting. He shows up and he sees Floyd resisting, and he chooses not to tase him. I'm going to restrain him anyway. I'm going to use a ground control technique. Everyone's screaming in his face. One guy's an MMA fighter, and he's being held back by someone else. That was one of the most amazing things to me about the case. This guy who's an MMA fighter testified. He put him in a blood choke. And then when Nelson shows the video, it was like, there's the MMA fighter in front of Chauvin, who's 5'9", 140 pounds, and someone was holding this guy back. Stands to reason that Chauvin felt he was in a very serious threatening situation.
He was a little distracted.
Yeah.
I would be distracted under the circumstances.
How do they not have reasonable doubt? It's like, I'm sorry, but at this point, I have like, it's not reasonable doubt. It's like, what's overt disbelief? You know what I mean? Like,
right. Like you just think he's innocent. Period.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Like that's simple.
I love how the left their attitude is, but we saw it on video. Matter. It's like all the context, the training, policing, none of it matters.
And I can't stand how the left is covering this. Like they are not preparing their audience at all for an acquittal. Like they're saying that this trial is going swimmingly for the prosecution. And it's like there was a day that went really well for the prosecution when they cross-examined,
Thursday.
the use of force expert. But every other day, I would say, for the prosecution has not been that great. They had like tons and tons of witnesses, and Nelson was able to get out a lot on cross.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't typically follow criminal trials, and I thought when the prosecution's use of force experts were testifying, I thought it was a defense witness.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is great. The defense is really laying it out. And then I was like, wait, that's the prosecution's witness?
Yikes.
He brought in a guy to claim that Chauvin was doing what he was supposed to do and could have done worse? Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, are they trying to lose? Or, I can't remember who it was that we're talking to that said, there's just no case.
I mean, on the one hand, it's really hard because there's a lot of what Chauvin is doing. I mean, and there's this mismatch too, right? Like the thing that really seems like excessive force is, in particular, the knee on the neck or in the neck area, and then also like holding onto him well after he's lost his pulse. That seems like excessive force. But so much of everything that led up to that was policy. Like I think they conceded, holding somebody in the prone position for excited delirium. I'm pretty sure that was Minneapolis policy.
Right. But also, they're like, yeah, but why 9 minutes? Because the MMA guy was screaming in his face and being held back, and Chauvin was very distracted and didn't know what was going on.
And because they thought EMS was coming and would be right there, and they were just trying to like hold on to him.
Did you see the prosecution's expert use of force witness who said when he was asked on cross, have you ever held someone in a restraint until EMS arrived? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Wow.
That's. I mean, it's just true. So, yeah.
Their own witnesses over and over and over again. That was crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then I was reading. The crazy thing about it is I'm watching the trial, and like I said, the first time I tuned into the cross examination, I thought it was the defense's own witness, and I was like, oh wow, we're in the defense. I was like, wait a minute, the defense hasn't started their case yet. Wow. And then I start watching the mainstream media, and what do? They show only the highlight reel of one fighter landing punches. Mm-hmm. They omit the defense. The craziest thing about that, I think it was Slate.com, right? Lefty publication, where they say, is the defense floundering? And then I see these articles where they're like, the defense is helpless. And I'm like, when your commentary is derivative of biased news sources and you don't double check, you write opinions that are based in just
nobody was watching cross. I remember we were watching, I think, CNN a couple days ago during the defense witnesses, and finally their analysts were talking about cross-examination and how like they were able to ask questions and things like that. And I'm like, I realized you guys haven't even talked about cross-examination yet.
Yeah.
You guys, it's just you've only broadcast highlights of direct.
Yep.
And and that gives you no clue about what's actually happening.
You know why?
In the case.
These people have invested everything in the resistance, in Donald Trump. That's why there are still these YouTubers and there are still these news outlets that are writing about Donald Trump today. It's amazing.
They talk about January 6th almost every single night. I watch CNN and MSNBC every night. They talk about it literally. I don't know. Will watches it with me. Would you say almost every single night?
Almost every night. I mean, Rachel Maddow did like 40 minutes on Russia. Russia last night.
No, what?
40 minutes.
She talked about Trump, Russia, and then she talked about, I think it was Deonte Wright she talked about for a little bit, or it was a shooting.
There's like 20 minutes of the riots.
Back to Russia.
So these people have an audience of cultists that they've whipped into a cult over the past several years, and they know if they give them real information that offends them, their minds will explode. So they're like, okay, let's see. We have this trial, and the prosecution expert witness says Chauvin should not have done that. That's great. We'll put that for 10 p.m. or for 10 a.m. Then we have the defense. They said, actually, he should not have done it, but it was part of his training. Let's throw that in the garbage. And this next one says Chauvin was using excessive force. We'll put that right there. And then, but that's my opinion and not the facts because he was trained to do that and other officers do it as well. Let's throw that one in the garbage.
Just the highlights.
This is a major part of what's stirring up riots. You have all of these viewers watching what they think is the facts of the trial. Yeah. They turn on CNN and MSNBC every single night. And then what if he gets off? Well, what they've been watching is showing them, to them, obviously he should have been convicted.
Imagine what,
once he gets off, it's like they have more of a reason to go out and riot.
Imagine watching a boxing match where they only show you, fighter in the blue shorts punching the fighter in the red shorts over and over again. You're like, oh, this is brutal. It's over, man. This is, oh, geez. And then all of a sudden, they go to call it, and they raise the arm of the guy in the red shorts. You're like, well, he didn't land a single punch.
They'll even be like, why does that other guy's face look so busted up?
Yeah, right.
Like, it doesn't matter. He won.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then they riot.
See it, and then it'll be cognitive. They won't even question why it looks like. Like literally, that's how the human mind is built.
Or actually, maybe a better way to put it is like it's a World Series match. It's, baseball, and it's the, I don't know any teams. Give me a team. We got the White Sox.
Cleveland Indians.
Do they play against the Sox?
They play against the White Sox. No, they play against
They
the
wouldn't.
Cubs.
It would not in the World Series.
The World Series is going to be National American
Yeah.
League. So
Let's say Cubs.
the Cubs versus
White Sox.
Yeah.
Okay.
What? I guess they both make it Chicago.
White Sox.
So there's going to be a riot no matter what happens.
I mean, it is
Yeah.
Chicago.
And basically, people are watching, and then they only see the home run scored by the Sox, and they're like, "Wow, it's they got 8 runs in. They must have won." And then when it turns out the Cubs had 9, they just don't believe. Like, you're lying.
Yeah.
We watched the game. We didn't see any of that. And they go around and destroy everything, riot, smashing things, and just anger.
Well, I mean, they're doing it again. So the Deonte Wright thing, we were watching it on CNN and MSNBC. They always play the clip, and you know what they omit? The part where he's being placed under arrest and then evades and gets back into his car.
Yep.
They cut to begin the thing right after that happens, and while he's already back in the car.
I think it was either 2015 or 16. There was a Trump rally in Janesville, Wisconsin. There was an old man arguing with a young woman. She started screaming, "He touched my breast, he touched my breast." He puts his hands up and said, "I didn't even touch you." Then she punches him in the face, and someone pepper sprays her. Mike.com added the most insane edit I've ever seen because it was within like 1 second where he puts his hands up, then she punches him and gets pepper sprayed. So they added like a flare, a white flash, and all it did was cover up her punching the old man. So all you see her doing is going, "He touched my breast." He puts his hands up, and then if the screen flashes and she's going, getting pepper sprayed.
Wow.
They literally cut out her punching a guy in the face. She was pepper sprayed in self-defense of others.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What goes through your mind when you're like, I'm going to edit this video and make this woman not punch him? Why?
Because they're like, I'm going to make so much money from
Yeah, like
this.
these clicks,
yeah,
man.
that's true.
Yep. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.